This is a power steering pump rebuild on a 2002 Celica GT. I have the motor out and my rack and pinion was leaking, so I figured I may as well rebuild this too. I got the gasket set from Toyoda, if I recall correctly. I think it was about 25 bucks. Got my manual here from Toyota. It looks pretty easy. I watched some videos on YouTube on other ones, and this actually looks to be slightly easier. Okay, so I have removed the suction port union. There's an O-ring on there, and that's the bolt holding it in. And I removed the pressure port union, which is this right here, and it's going into there. This is a 27 millimeter, which I didn't have in a socket. I did end up having a wrench that was 1 1/16, and that worked. It was kind of hard to get off. I put the wrench on there and then actually hit the wrench with a drilling hammer, and that jarred it loose. So after this, I'm going to flip this over, and inside here is the flow control valve, and there's going to be a spring. And then after that, the instructions say to take off the oil pressure switch. So this is the, I'll superimpose a photo of this thing. These are all the parts that make it up. I'll take a photo of that and put it on top. The only other thing is it's relatively clean. I pressure washed it beforehand, and what I did was I had just a regular, this is from Air Tools, pipe fitting, and I had a little bit of nylon Teflon on there, and then that's how I plug that to keep water from getting in there. And the other thing, the suction port, I ziplocked off, put a baggie over it with a ziplock on it to keep the water from getting in there. Alright, so that's the flow control valve and the spring. It didn't want to come out of there. I put it upside down and kind of flapped it a couple times, didn't fall out. So before taking out the pressure switch that was in here, I put a rag over this so it wouldn't go flying anywhere, and I put some air compressor pressure on there, and then I popped that thing out, because this is a sealing surface, so I didn't want to poke around and everything. Okay, so this rear housing is the next thing to come off, so I got to remove this bolt from the other side, and then these bolts. So you want to take them all off evenly. So this, you need to stick that the other. Alright, so this is the inside of the power steering pump. You can see the O-ring was kind of degrading right there. There's a dowel pin on here that lines up. There's one hash mark there. There's a little arrow there. That's what's going to indicate like what side's up. The way this works, when this thing spins around, these vane plates, centrifugal force pushes them out, so they take the fluid in the larger gap and then squish it down and create high pressure, and it goes down that way. So the next step is to pull this out of here. I've noticed in the other holes and stuff like that, there is a bunch of burn up grime on the inside of it. Okay, so there is a small little snap ring that holds this thing in place. And what I did, so there's a gear there, and I stuck the pick down in between the snap ring and the gear to make it come out a little bit. And I used a piece of plastic to pull it up because I didn't want anything metal against here going down in there with a pick. It's fine. I mean, it just wedged it apart. The tip of the pick didn't even touch anything. So then all this is going to come out. These little vanes, you want to keep them in the right order. The bottom of them is squared, the top of them is round, but you also want to keep them in the right direction, this way and that way, so that they're going back in the same way that they were going before. Okay, so what I did was got a couple of magnets, cleaned them off to make sure there wasn't any debris on them, and I used that to just lift everything out all in one piece. So I got the vane pump rotor, the cam ring, and the side plate, and I'm just going to keep them all in there so they're going back in the same position. There aren't any pieces in there that I plan on replacing, so I'm just going after O-rings and seals and cleaning it out. Okay, so I've pulled one of them out here, because I want to show, hope you can see it. There's a line on one side of these, and it's from the force of the thing being turned around. So by the looks of it, it's going this way. So here's the circle. I wrote this down for a note in case I throw everything everywhere. So there's a little bit of a line on one side, and that's going to be, so like it's there. I can see it from there. Oh, there we go. And so it's going to go in that way, so that the line is on that side. And then if you have to look real close or feel it, one side of this is a right angle, and the other side is kind of rounded off. So the rounded off sides are going to be sticking out towards the vane. Just in case things go awry, you got to make sure that the mark is on that's the right side of it as you're looking down on it, and then the rounded side out. All right, so I didn't realize it, but I was at the last step of disassembly, because once the vane is out there, that snap ring is the only thing holding this in. So all I did was pull this right on out. Other manufacturers, there's videos out there for like Honda and stuff, you had to press this thing out. But the snap ring makes it really easy. So now I'm just simply down to the body and that seal. So what I'm going to do is clean everything up, replace that seal, put it back together. Okay, so I have removed the seal that was there. I just took a screwdriver and pried it out, and then pounded it back in with a rubber mallet, put this on something soft. And it's actually the size of a 1/2-inch PVC coupler, so you can do that, but it was flush when it came out, so I put it back flush where it was at. Let's see here, they call this the side plate. I had to flip that over to put the O-ring on there. So I did all the O-rings. I cleaned everything up and I did all the O-rings on them. They say to all the O-rings need to be in power steering fluid, which is automatic transmission fluid. And so I put all those in there, and the kit was missing one of the O-rings. The O-ring for the low pressure port and the pressure sensor were the same size, but there was only one of them in there. I happened to have an extra for this. That was like 11.5 millimeter by 14 or something like that, 14.5. Same as the transmission, one of the transmission sensors. I happen to have it. So the next step, so automatic transmission goes on all the O-rings, and so they put it in here, arrows where it all goes. So basically they want automatic transmission on any of these moving parts on the internals, inside the housing, because there. Okay, so the new seal, this is the old one, the new seal came packed with grease around the inside of there. The manual says to put automatic transmission fluid on the shaft. So what I actually could, but once you push that through this thing, it's just going to kind of squeeze it all off. So I put the automatic transmission fluid on the inside of this thing where it's down in right now. So it would pull out. So that because that about an inch of that is what the shaft goes on. So the other videos that I looked at was a Honda, and there was a bearing in there. And so instead of a bearing, they're using this, and power steering fluid is getting pumped through there, and that's the surface that's there. So that surface, I made sure it was wet with automatic transmission fluid before I put the shaft in. So the next step is there's this O-ring. So I'm going to just stick it in here already. And then the next step is that this whole piece needs to go in here. I'm going to flip it over. I replace the O-ring on there. This little notch right there needs to line up, oops, with those two notches. There are two notches on the side of there. So I'm going to flip this, just flip it over with the plastic. So those two need to be lined up with this, because that's where this pin is going to go into. Okay, so I flipped it over, all went well. Just notice that, like I said, if this thing fell apart or you took it apart, these marks, there's a mark on this one, and that needs to be up. The same thing, this arrow needs to be up. all of those little rectangles on the inside here, they're squared. On the outside here, they're kind of rounded. And because of the way that the forces that are on there, there's like a little mark on the back side of this, of that piece of metal. So that's the direction that they would go in. Next step is to put on the back plate. This pin lines up with those two things that I lined up. These bolts get torqued down to 16 foot-pounds. The big one gets torqued down to 32 foot-pounds. And then after that, it's the oil pressure switch, which will be 15 foot-pounds. All right, almost missed an important step. This little clip needs to go on there to hold everything down in place, and that's what holds the shaft in. So that goes on before the back plate and the nuts, or the bolts. Okay, so I torqued down the bolts in the back. What I did to get leverage is on the inside of here, there's a bunch of knurls, and that thing's strong. You only got to get it to 15 foot-pounds. It's just weird to grab a hold of that thing and twist. So these are all torqued down. The next step is, actually I'm going to put in the high pressure valve or sensor. Pressure sensor. After that, this is the high pressure valve that let's see, what do they call it here? Let's see. So what it is, once it gets up to pressure, it diverts pressure back to the low side, and that's how it keeps it from getting over pressure. So this will get put back in, and that's 51 foot-pounds. That's why it was so hard to get off. And then the suction port will get torqued down, and that's only 9 foot-pounds of that small bolt. Wham bam zam, it's done. That's all there is to it. It really wasn't that difficult. The videos I watched for Hondas were more difficult just because of the way that it's made. Toyota, superior design. And that's it for now. I created this channel. I'm only going to make a couple of videos probably, but go ahead and like, share, and subscribe. I'm just going to make videos of things that aren't on the internet yet. Couldn't find anything on this, so I made this one. I'm going to rebuild the rack and pinion, and I will make a video for that too, because I couldn't find one on it. The only weird thing on this was the 27 millimeter. But that's just an odd number. Literally. All right, have a good one.